guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, filming in a new background, so that means I don't have my microphone, so it's going to sound a little warbled, so bear with me. This might be how I have to format some videos for a little bit, or if I can find a way to do my microphone in here, I'll figure it out. Anywho, I just saw Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 is the sequel to 2021's Dune, starring Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, Rebecca Ferguson, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, a whole plethora of a cast. Dune Part 2 follows the mythic journey of Paul Atreides as he unites with Chani in the Fremen while on a path of revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known universe, Paul endeavors to prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. Now look on my letterbox, ask anybody that knows me personally how I feel about the first Dune movie that came out a few years ago. I'm very mixed on it, and I'm not saying that to be contrarian or anything. I think that from a technical and visual standpoint, that movie is flawless. But the story itself doesn't really grasp me. It feels like one of those movies where you have to have knowledge of the source material and you had to have read the book to understand necessarily everything that's going on. You can't just jump right into it like I feel like you can with something like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. I also didn't really find any of the characters all that remotely interesting or fleshed out, and I can't really get behind a guy in a sci-fi epic like this whose first name is Paul, and I just thought that Timothée Chalamet doesn't really strike me as somebody who would play a role like this, and he feels very stiff, and I feel like that's the same thing here. But the difference here with Dune Part 2 is that with the first one, I also felt as if Denis was asleep at the wheel when it came to a lot of the action set pieces. It felt like it moved along at a sluggish pace. It felt like there was no energy or spark to that movie, even in the action set pieces. For me, it's a very slow-moving movie, and it's something that I just rewatching it today. I fell asleep for about 5 minutes, and I had to go back, rewind, and watch what I had missed. And my thoughts on that first movie still remain, even after rewatch. I'm very mixed on it. I think 2 takes everything and ramps it up to 11, mostly. The things that plagued the first one for me are still present here, just not as much. I think actually Denis really woke up in terms of the action set pieces and delivered some really energetic and really fresh action set pieces. There's 2 standout ones to me. One towards like the 40-minute mark where it feels like there's this like small battle going on that leads into a shootout that I thought was actually really entertaining and really gut-wrenching and tension-filled, and I was surprised with how much energy and spark it felt like that had compared to a lot of the action in the first one, where it just felt very flat. It felt like how Sam Mendes had directed Spectre as opposed to Skyfall. Skyfall had a lot of energy. Spectre, directed by Sam Mendes, again, it just felt like he was asleep at the wheel, like he didn't want to make the movie. I feel like that contrast is here with Denis with this movie. There's a really awesome introduction to Austin Butler's character, Frade Rutha or something. I don't know how to say his name. I'm gonna mess that up, but he's part of House Harkonnen. His character introduction is amazing. Anytime Austin Butler is on screen in this movie, he eats the scenery up. He relishes just being an evil, psychotic psychopath. You talk down to him, he'll take a knife and just slash your throat. That's how it works in House Harkonnen and how it works with him. He is that psychotic. His sequence is honestly probably the best sequence, like his introduction sequence in the entire movie. There's a good 15-minute block, I would say, where you don't even see Paul, Chani, Stiglar, or the rest of the Fremen for a good chunk of the movie. It's focusing on Austin Butler's character, and I loved every second he was on screen. I do wish he was in it a little bit more, but that could probably be because of the material, and he's probably not in the source material all that much, but I would have loved to have seen more of him because he was menacing, man. He was dirty, he was filthy. You did not want to mess up this guy's day because he would just take that knife and kill you. He is that psychotic. He is insane. He is fucked up in the head, and Austin Butler just relished it, especially after coming off of something like Elvis. The man killed it in this role. He was by far the best part, the coolest character in any of these movies. Move aside Duncan Idaho, because Duncan Idaho was my favorite character in the first one, as opposed to now, where it is now Austin Butler's character, Frade. I don't know how to say his name. I'm sorry. Coolest character in these two movies has the coolest set piece set in a gladiator arena that has some really, really striking visuals. It's all whites and grays that saturate into the scene. Thor Love and Thunder kind of did the same thing when they go to the Shadow Realm, but this just did it better. This just puts that to shame. And, you know, that's probably my favorite sequence of Thor Love and Thunder, but this just did it so much better. I felt like I was watching Gladiator from like 1955 or something. So good. The visuals, the technical aspects, cinematography is amazing. Visually gorgeous movie to look at. So many great shots that look like portraits that you could just hang up on your wall and people will question you as to what they are, and you could just say it's a sunset and they believe you. So many great shots like that. So many great technical and special effects that for a movie that is a big blockbuster like this with a sweeping scope and a really, really large scale, it feels so much more expensive than it actually is. This feels like it's a $250 million to $300 million movie, and it's only made on a budget for $122 million. I don't know how they did it, guys. Everybody on Denis' team should make every blockbuster from now on. It is flawless. The special effects and the CGI from scene to scene just take your breath away. There is not one single glitch or something that looks fuzzy or something that just looks like you're looking at a computer generated image. Nothing. Nothing in this movie feels like that. That's how immaculate visual effects are, and how I'm just happy that finally a visual effects team finally got to put in the necessary work and didn't feel like they were overworked to put out a product on time, and the visual effects are a product of all the hard-working visual effects artists. So kudos to all of them, because I know that they are underpaid and overworked in the industry, and it's not fair. They definitely deserve a lot of credit, just like they did with the first one, but here, even so more. Not a single technical flaw with this movie. It's so good. The sound design, my theater, I saw this at a press screening in Dolby. Theater was rocking, man. There were so many cool scenes that I wanted to see, that I was hoping to see. The vibe I got from this movie was more the vibe that I wanted from the first movie. And that was, I just wanted to see some sandworms, man. And I got my sandworms. So I was mostly satisfied with Dune 2, but what didn't work for me, it's mostly what didn't work for me in the first one. I still have a hard time getting invested in the story. I don't know, maybe Dune's just gonna have that effect for me, right? I know what's going on, but there's so much being thrown at you at once where it feels like sometimes you do have to play catch up, and there are some things that just don't make sense, and I feel like if I had read the book, it would have been beneficial, because I feel like, as I said in the open, that you have to have read the book to fully grasp everything in this world and what's going on. Unlike Harry Potter, where you can just dive right in, things are kind of spoon-fed to you. I know that that's like the cop-out, but I kind of wish that Dune did that a little bit. It's packed and it's dense, and I think that's actually to its detriment, and I get why they had to split this movie into two parts now. But all the other characters, I'm not really interested in any of them. I don't really get behind Paul all that much, and I think it's just how Timothée Chalamet plays Paul. I've never been a big Timothée Chalamet guy. I liked him a lot in Wonka. I thought he brought a lot of spunk and personality. He's better here than he was in the first one. But like I said, it's just I can't get behind a dude named Paul. I don't know why. Paul, Chani, Stiglar, the rest of the Fremen, there's really nothing to them. Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, she's probably the most fleshed out of that group. I still don't really care all that much. I feel like I still, after two movies, don't really know these people, and we're supposed to be getting, supposedly, a third movie based on Dune Messiah, and if they're the main characters, I just don't know if I can go on another adventure with them without fully knowing who they are. And sometimes I feel like in this movie, Paul's intentions and motivations get a little bit muddled. That's just me. I could be speaking out of my ass, and somebody will probably be like, well, you didn't understand the movie then. And there could have been something I missed. I don't know. The third act for me was also very underwhelming. It sets up this grand scale epic, something I wanted to see, something that I thought was going to happen. Nothing to do necessarily with the sandworms, but it was a big action set piece that felt like it was building to be an even bigger action set piece, and then it just kind of cuts. And we kind of do something that's a little bit more tension-filled. It just felt like it didn't feel like a grand finale to the story. It's probably how it is in the book. So the book has to take a little bit of blame for that, but it's also harder to explain stuff like that in a book. I think a visual medium like a movie can help you really grasp what the scale and the scope of a big battle like that are, and I just wish that there was more of it. That's kind of my thing. That was my thing with the first one, is that that's where I felt like it lacked a little bit of energy. Denis just didn't get down and in there sometimes with the action. Through the first half of this movie, I thought he did a really good job with the action, but it was just that final set piece where it seemed like he was like, all right, now let's call it a day. We're almost done. He kind of pulled it back a little bit too much for me. Everything involving the Harkonnens in this movie, I loved. Anytime it cut back to Shani, Paul, Stiglar, and the Fremen in the desert, I was bored out of my mind, honestly, unless that they were riding sandworms. So I did enjoy this more than part one, and I'm not saying this to be contrarian. I don't love these movies. I'm very mixed on the first one. I like this one, but I don't love it. I know everybody's going to walk out of it loving it. I have my issues with it, and that's my goal here. I'm here to be honest with you guys. And I think critiquing things like the things that I have are fair criticisms. I really wanted to love the first one when it first came out, but it just didn't have that spark or energy. I felt like this one felt a little bit energized compared to that one, even if there are still things from that first movie that don't sit well with me and carried over into this movie. I enjoyed Dune Part 2 with 3/4 of a bucket of popcorn. So what'd you guys think of Dune 2? Actually, it's not even out yet. I saw it at a press screening. So when Dune Part 2 does come out on March 1st, let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.